My name is Hannah Sikora. I'm a senior at Texas Tech. My senior thesis is Taming the Growth of Alzheimer's Disease. So we will be discussing that today. Alzheimer's disease is the sixth leading cause of death in America. Our numbers are going to continue to rise. As of right now, there are about 5 million people in America with this disease, and the numbers are going to continue to grow. It is estimated that we may have 16 million people with this diagnosis by the time of 2050. So as you can see, it's continuing to grow, and it's a huge problem. We've got to do something about it. So what is Alzheimer's disease? We'll start off by explaining what a healthy brain would look like. Within our healthy brains, we have a communication system within the brain. Our neurons, I'll draw it for you, I'm not a good drawer, but our neurons, something like this. So this is a neuron, this is the dendrites. They communicate with other neurons. Something like that. They're able to communicate information throughout the day. This could be, my mom's name, anything that you can think of. Our brain is constantly having synapses. So this is what a healthy brain would look like. And over here, I'm going to draw what an AD brain. I'll be referring to Alzheimer's disease as AD, just so it's quicker to say. So an AD brain or AD neuron would look something like this. It would start like this, and as the person gets older, the dendrite and neuron would look something like this, and then what happens is over time we can have protein buildup, and that would call plaques, something like this, plaques and tangles. So it looks kind of crazy, but basically you can see that this neuron will not be able to communicate nearly as well as this neuron would. So plaques and tangles are in the way of this neuron. See, I have a plaque in the way here, I have tangles. So this communication system is just off. And this one is very healthy. One thing that we can do is kind of refer to it as a metaphor. With that, I can talk about, So we can refer to this as a telephone connection. So a healthy brain will have a good connection with cell phone line, whatever it may be. So I'm calling my mom, I'm here. Because I have a healthy brain, my mom's over here. And I'm easily able to communicate. There's nothing getting in the way of my communication. But over here, if I were to be suffering from AD, I could be calling my mom, but the communication is jumbled. It's blocked from plaques, tangles. Some days the communication can be just fine, and on other days it can be a lot worse. So that's one of the ways that we can kind of talk about Alzheimer's disease, just thinking about you not being able to communicate information nearly as well as you used to. So with this disease, why must we use an integrative approach? There's been a lot of research over the years revolving Alzheimer's disease, but unfortunately the research has been looking at it from one discipline. One here, one maybe here, and it could even be multiple disciplines, but they're not connecting, they're not integrating. And so with my thesis, I will be integrating the use of nutrition and medicine to solve this complex issue. Okay, so now we're going to talk about developed regions versus our developing regions. So what is the difference? Well, first off, what are developed regions? That could be the US, that could be the UK, and then Western Europe. So our developing regions, this would be more Africa. The Sub-Sahara, that's one of the known regions that has the least amount of dementia. So Africa, my bad. Just ignore it if I misspell stuff. I'm just trying to get it out there. So Africa, another one would be Asia. And another one would be India. Okay, so what are some differences? First off, in our developed regions, we have an increased prevalence of Alzheimer's disease. But over here, we have a decreased prevalence of Alzheimer's disease. So what's the difference between these regions? Over here, we're going to have pretty good health care. Which includes medication. We have a little more money. But over here we have processed diets. And then over here we don't have nearly as much of the health care or medication. So decreased health care, meds. We don't have nearly as much money, decreased money, more poverty stricken over here. And then, but we do have more wholesome diets. So what does a processed diet versus a wholesome diet look like? A processed diet in America, as we know, we like fried food, processed meats, any carbs, sugar. Just we have so many different types of food that we don't have over here. So developing regions, they are eating more healthy, more of the leafy greens, vegetables, nuts, stuff like that. They don't eat nearly as much red meat as we do. Basically, most of their food is not processed. So that's the big difference with these. In saying that, what could be the cause of this? With our processed diets in our developed regions, these can cause their increased risk for Alzheimer's disease. They tend to kind of have an inflammation effect to your body and your brain. And over here, they're not really having that, so they don't have the inflammation. With inflammation, this is going to be protein buildup. So, our protein buildup, that's what we were talking about earlier with the plaques and tangles. I know I drew that beautiful picture for everyone. So, our plaques and tangles are getting in the way of our communication system within our brain. So, what am I trying to do with this project? I want, in taming the growth of Alzheimer's disease, I think it's very important that education of what these diets can do. Of course, everyone thinks about, I want to eat healthy so I can look good. I want to eat healthy, fit my pants, whatever it may be. But really, we need to think about our long-term health in our brain. We need brain food, basically, that's not going to be causing this protein buildup and the plaques and tangles within the brain. Okay, so why is diet so important? Our processed diet equals a lot of sugar. Sugar needs insulin to be able to break down. If that does not happen, our body ends up with lots of sugar, leftover insulin. Leftover insulin will result in insulin resistance. So if our body is not able to break down all of the sugar that it has, it may remain in the bloodstream, which will cause brain problems. So what does that mean? What is brain problems? What does that have to do with it? With insulin resistance, glucose does not become energy. So how is our brain supposed to function without energy? That's the biggest thing that we need. Brain cells start to die, and this results in the plaques and tangles, and this allows us, or not allows us to, but this causes us to be more AD prone. So this kind of lets you know how important. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about medication, the second discipline that I'm using for my integrative approach. There are a variety of medications to help those that are afflicted with AD, Alzheimer's disease. A couple are mamotidine and galantamine. These, both of these medications, as well as many others, work as cholinesterase. Cholinesterase assists in slowing the breakdown of the neurotransmitters. So slowing the breakdown will result in slowing down the progression of AD. So death of neurotransmitters is what causes the plaques and tangles we talked about earlier. So there's that. The plaques and tangles is what results in the poor connection, and our brain is not able to make the connections between neurons. Although there are many medications that I just briefly went over that help Alzheimer's disease and decrease the progression of Alzheimer's disease, there's also medications such as anxiety medication, such as Xanax, depression medication, any sleep aids, and NSAIDs that also cause you to be more at risk for Alzheimer's disease. So in conclusion, the main goal of this whole lecture is prevention. With prevention, we need education. We need to educate everyone, the public, on the results of processed diets. What can they do? Many people think of processed diets or an unhealthy diet that correlates to just being heavier, even obesity, heart diseases, but people normally are not connecting it with Alzheimer's disease. So we need to get that out there. And medication. Like I said, I know that there's medication that is helpful, but in prevention of AD, we need to have the community and our population know that these can cause AD, or they can be correlated to Alzheimer's disease. So we need to be aware. If someone needs any of these medications, that's okay, but the doctors need to be telling them, hey, just so you know, your anxiety medication may later on cause you to be more at risk for Alzheimer's disease. It's just, we need to be more aware. And with that, if they know that they are more at risk for Alzheimer's disease, they can go more frequently for checkups and talk to their doctor and say, okay, what can we do about this? Can we do a brain scan? Can we see how I'm doing? Just be more aware. So prevention and education is going to be very big for this, as well as awareness. Like I said, people don't relate diet to brain health. They think of anything but brain health, to be honest. But with our brain, there's no reverse. You are not going to be able to reverse it. With many other diseases, they can be reversed. But with our brain, that's the only one we got. So prevention is key. In integrating this complex problem, I think that we need more awareness in schools, commercials, and I'm taking this from, this is more inspired from the campaigns that were informative on HIV and AIDS and tobacco. At one time, people didn't realize what tobacco could possibly do. And now we are much more aware as a society, and if we choose to continue to use tobacco, we know what we're at risk for. And with HIV and AIDS, We now have protective measures, and so it's just a lot more talked about. And this is going to help us in taming the growth of Alzheimer's disease. So another thing, brain scans. I think that with everything, we need to be able to have more access to brain scans. Make it cheaper. We are spending so much money on medication for Alzheimer's disease, but hey, let's use some of that money in more preventative measures. So brain scans, and teach healthy brain diets. Let's get that out on commercials. Let's talk to schools and help the children in understanding what it means to eat healthy for your brain, as well as your quality of life and well-being. So education on the public, that's going to be very big. And unfortunately, because there is not a medication or anything at this time that can reverse Alzheimer's disease, my focus is on the younger population, an attempt to just decrease the amount and prevalence of dementia. Like I said earlier, I mean, with the underdeveloped countries, they don't have these types of processed foods and medications. So our society really needs to know this is what can be caused from our processed foods and even our medication. So thank you for your time. This is my presentation, and I've enjoyed this class and hope you learned a little bit today. Thank you.